Give us 30 minutes each week to discover the trends that are shaping the future of retirement with That Annuity Show. We bring you conversations with industry leaders who are revolutionizing financial products, technology, and distribution channels. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. Tisa, it's just you and me today.
I know. This will be great. For the two of us hosting together, the dynamic duo.
Yeah. So listen, we've got a really great guest on our show, and I think I think this episode will be a really interesting window into just the very different, broad group of people who uh, play leading roles in the retirement space. So I'd like to introduce Kerra Bolton, and Kerra, I will give you my intro.
Okay.
Which is how we got to know you. Is you're just a terrifically prolific writer for a website that is hyper focused on the retirement space called Go Banking Rates. Remarkably powerful voice out there on the web, and I want to say thank you very much for picking up a few of my soliloquies over the past year.
Well, thank you. I mean, when I have an article coming up, I'm like, okay, this is a Paul article. I'm going to see what he's up to. But I should clarify that I am a freelancer for them. So anything that I say is on behalf of myself. It is not on behalf of Go Banking Rates. And I am an independent contractor. I'm not a staffer.
Yeah. Now, you've worked for, and correct me if I'm wrong, you've worked for CNN, you've worked for a number of other outlets, but this is only kind of scratching the surface of your career and the kind of the breadth of creative work you do. Can you maybe give us an introduction? Tell us kind of what are you up to?
That's a good question. I'm trying to figure that out myself. I am an independent journalist and a filmmaker. I started at National Geographic magazine as an office assistant in their photo department. I wanted to learn visual storytelling, and then worked for a small newspaper in Western North Carolina. I covered politics and government for the competing paper there, and lived in Raleigh for quite a number of years. And the North Carolina Democratic Party asked if I would become their communications director, which I did because the newspaper world at that time was changing. And I wasn't quite sure if that's where I wanted to be. I'd also done some television production work at the time as well. So worked in politics for a while, left, opened up my own boutique PR firm, and that was fun for a while. And then around 2016, before the elections, I really decided that it was time for me to have a new adventure. And so I moved to Mexico, and I had a full book of clients who all said, oh, yes, we're going to stay with you. You're great. And within a year of moving to Mexico, I lost all of my clients. I made a sarcastic remark on a friend's Facebook page, which led to a contract at CNN because I had no idea that he was the digital director for CNN at the time. And he said, this would make a great op-ed. So I started freelancing for CNN, writing op-eds about culture and politics. And then, this is going to sound like a crazy story. And then this eccentric millionaire who lives in Pennsylvania, Ted Wachtel, he's a pioneer of restorative practices and restorative justice, said, I read one of your articles, and can you help me put together something for communications? So that turned out being a 4-year stint in which I wrote a book about restorative communities. And I also produced an award-winning docuseries about restorative justice in Detroit. And then the pandemic happened, and I lost all of my income and started freelance writing again. And so I'm rebuilding, which is so interesting that I get a job writing about consumer finance after not having money for years. So I'm like, has a great sense of humor.
Oh, that's fascinating. So that is how you ended up in the retirement and insurance business.
Yes. Basically. Yes.
So, Kara, so thank you for sharing your journey to
I thought
date.
it was a good.
I was just wanting to ask kind of your guidance or your thoughts that you would share on the idea with being in business, having challenges, and the process of kind of reinventing the offering that you have, right? So it's not necessarily reinventing yourself, like your skill sets stayed the same as a journalist and some of the other things you talked about from a writing perspective. But in each of those um, twists and turns, I won't call them setbacks, right?
Yeah.
Just changes in the course. How did you manage through that process? And I'm asking because for our audience that's listening, right, for agents and financial professionals working, independently, specifically, the process of like building business, building brand, changing course, changing product sets, there's a parallel there. So I think that would be helpful for our audience to hear.
So, from the practical point of view, it depends on how much financial runway that you have. So, that if you have at least a year or more of expenses built up, then you can take more risks. Because what I'm finding, because I've had businesses that failed, like earlier this year, I had launched a career coaching business, and last year I wanted to be in the retreat space. And those businesses failed because one, I did not have the financial runway to be able to take the risks and take the time to really cultivate my business. So, what I recommend is that if you have a shorter runway or no runway, which is what I had, is that you do things that are close to your current skill set. So, do things that you're already known for, but be adjacent to that. So, for example, if you work in a specific role at a company and you want to start your own business doing the same thing, except for you're working for yourself and you're independent. If you have no runway, because it takes a lot to get people's attention. I mean, you think about LinkedIn, you're not just competing with announcements that people have and how they're so pleased to talk to the third grade class at Henderson Elementary School. You're competing with videos and big news and lots of different things. And that's a very crowded field. And then also think about the way what your message is and how different it is than what other people are saying in your space, and what is the best way for you to communicate. So, for example, I'm a writer, and I also love being on camera. Public speaking, although I was part of the Speakers Collaborative, which was founded by my friend Cody Hand, I'm terrible on stage. Like, I grip the podium and I want to read my notes instead of talk to people. Like, I need training for public speaking. So if you are a person who's great on LinkedIn or great on Instagram, use that and show up and be consistent. So just to summarize, check out your financial runway. Do something that is adjacent to what you're already doing if you don't have a large runway. Define your message and choose the vehicle that is most aligned with you and be consistent.
Interesting, and I will tell you, in the financial service space, you know, most of the people who enter this business or who did over the last 20 years probably entered in their 40s. It's interesting. This is not in general, it wasn't something you'd start out, right out of college doing. I mean, there are some exceptions, and there are some companies that have some really successful college recruiting programs. But Carol, what you said is something I think a lot of agents kind of struggle with, which is how do I cut through this clutter? I don't have enough money to buy a billboard. It's very rare you see I don't think, in fact, Tisa, I've never seen a billboard for an insurance agent. I don't think so.
Not an individual. Yeah, I
No,
can think of some. Yeah,
yeah,
larger companies, but
yeah.
yeah, not an individual.
Yeah, no websites, news, Karen, and got. And just I want to say for listeners uh, who are here with us today, I mean, Kara, you have a big voice because Go Banking Rate not only has a big audience. I just know of you from here originally, but it gets syndicated on Yahoo and MSN, and we've seen the numbers on these sites. I mean, you will reach thousands of people with the materials that you put out. Maybe just tell me, like, if I'm an agent or I'm trying to write something that's going to cut through the clutter. I mean, what are the topics that people are most interested in, or you're getting requests, from some of your media outlets to write about?
I get requests every day. Well, first of all, if people are interested in specifically sites like Go Banking Rates and others, um, always have a consumer finance angle. Don't sell me on your product, excuse me. Sell me on your expertise. So I want to know what you know. And I want to be able to share that with my readers, and I want them to be able to, after they read my article, to be able to go and take action. So make sure that what you're saying is actionable. Retirement and savings are the two biggest things. Social Security, people are certainly worried about the shortfall that's coming in the next 10 years. They want to know about annuities. I mean, this is called That Annuity Show. So they want to know about different retirement vehicles. They also really want to know about how this most recent election is going to affect their finances, and their savings. And what I would tell people is to do your research. Don't just think about ideology and what people say, but I would go to places like the Tax Foundation if you're really concerned about the taxes, and other resources to really get objective information about how things are going to, how politics are going to affect your finances. I'm fortunate enough that I get to talk to economists, so those are the things that people talk about.
Um, what are you maybe hearing, kind of on layering on to what Paul just asked? When you're getting these requests, I understand some of the topics you just talked about, but from a consumer perspective, I think we know maybe what some of the concerns and worries are, right? But what are you hearing? And I'm just connecting this to some of the other work you do around, purpose-driven life and some of the other things. What are you hearing in the shift of what people are maybe seeking in retirement, and the kinds of either questions, inquiries you're getting, or just in general, what you're hearing amongst consumers of what they're talking about, what they're worried about, what they're planning for in retirement?
Well, right now, everybody's worried about inflation, of course. And we know that some of the numbers have come down, at least over the summer, but that doesn't change the perception that they're paying more for a carton of eggs. So, in terms of retirement, they're worried about how far their savings are going to go. It used to be sort of more about purpose driven retirement. And I think that that's still a factor, but the economy has eclipsed that, especially healthcare costs, which have risen, I think, by 12%. Don't quote me on that number, but they have risen. So they're worried about their health. They're worried about how far their retirement savings is going to last.
Yeah, it's interesting. Fear, is a great motivator.
Mhm.
We also have some very strict rules if you're an agent that you're not supposed to scare
Of
somebody,
course.
about to buy a product, which is good. But um, what is where's the line between telling Tisa that, yeah, maybe you need help with your plan versus, oh my gosh, your plan is you're going to be eating cat food 10 years from now if you if you
Yeah.
you don't work with me. And the topics are complex, Kara. I mean, when should you retire?
Mhm.
Um, very easy to ask a simple question from somebody who knows the business and get a volume of information back. What answers stand out that sort of like communicate? How do I know if I answer a question for you that it stands out from the pack, but it's not something that just doesn't make gets attention but doesn't make sense or it's not helpful?
Mm. There are so many different ways that you could go with that. So, if you wanted to use more positive speech, asking somebody about, how do you envision your retirement? What does that look like for you? Give me an ideal day. And for some people, it literally could be like, I'm sitting on the beach drinking margaritas. And I know plenty of people who do that. And it's like, okay, that's great. So, what are we going to do to get you there? So that you're on the beach and you're enjoying your margarita and you're not stressed about whether or not you're going to be able to pay your light bill. So, and for some people, it's like, I want to give back. And it's like, okay, well, have you set some money aside so that you can give back? To whom are you going to give back? What purposes does it want to serve? What legacy do you want to leave? I mean, I'm 51 and I'm really thinking about legacy right now. So, what kind of legacy that you want to leave? So, you ask those sort of open ended questions and walk them back. And rather than thinking that you have to have the perfect answer, listen to what their answer is and see if you've got something that you can offer them that will help inspire them as well as alleviate their fears. I mean, you want to, I'm learning how to swim and in my 50s. And one of the things is that I would say, I'm afraid, I'm scared. And my swim instructor would say, yes, you are afraid. But she also believed that I could do what she was asking me to do. And so now I can swim. And it's the same for your listeners. It's like, yes, you want to acknowledge I'm afraid, but then you also want to believe that they have the power to make decisions that are going to be good for themselves and for their family in the future.
Yeah, that's a really like powerful analogy to me, just thinking about the idea of like, I'm scared, do it anyway, that we kind of hear. So the art of listening, and understanding people's motivators and their values, right? So it's like coming in with a plan, but coming with a plan, not understanding the individual circumstance, and asking those questions to understand that first is just a good point to make. Um, I wanted to talk maybe a little bit about what you're writing about or hearing about from like more on the, I don't know if it's like taking risks, but the comfort or the mindset that it takes to like move past the fear into taking risks. Like, I'll say risk tolerance, but it's like bigger than that, right? It's more like moving past the trepidation or whatever is holding back to like make the decision. Like to your point, make a decision, move into a plan. So can you talk a little bit about like that mindset or that process, and how agents or financial professionals can support people's process through that?
Sure. I think it's to do it gradually. So, first of all, acknowledge that the fears exist and then be able to offer them something that gives them a little bit of risk, um, and get them comfortable with taking that risk and then introduce more risk. I think the more that they are gradually exposed to risk, the more comfortable that they will feel with it. And also remember that, and it's hard, especially for older adults, eh, to play the long game, because some of them feel like, okay, well, I don't have that much time left. How much of a long game am I going to play? But then that's when you move into legacy. So it's like, well, what legacy do you want to leave for your family? Or, if that person is not partnered or have children, what legacy do you want to leave for the community? So you get them to remember that they're also playing the long game and, no risk, no reward.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are sort of patterns in how we motivate people and our patterns how we tell stories, because the pattern I hear is identify, find the problem. Better to do that by asking questions, empathize. Yeah, it's okay to be afraid.
Mhm.
I am too at times. But I have this solution over here to get you there. Swim lessons.
Mhm.
And if you show up for the next 8 weeks, Kerra,
Yes.
you'll be doing 20 start. I mean, right? This is kind of how you get change. And I'm actually doing this in the new role I have with Zinnia. It's interesting. It's a little bit of a phase shift for me, Kerra. I've been working on like the carrier side, and always been involved in technology. Tisa and I were doing a lot of technology work, and I said, okay, I'm going to go for it, especially with the this whole wave of AI sweeping through our industry, because I think it's really going to change us. This is interesting. So, what's the problem? Well, I'm selling the future to people because they're saying, look, it's an expensive, complicated process. People don't understand how to do this. It's hard to put the business on the books, and yeah, it is. It is complicated. And it's kind of frightening. And AI and what it may do for our business, it's a little scary. But if you work with us, we're actually going to make that fear okay. We're going to turn that into actually a structure to help you get to someplace better. Saying it's interesting. Like, how do you remove fear from change? Um,
You don't.
and
You don't. I mean, I'm going to be real with you. I mean, the people who work with you and work with your listeners, they have to want what you have to offer more than they want their fear. Because if they want their fear, there's nothing you're going to be able to say. I mean, I think about this is a small thing, but I mean, I can talk about many, but like exercise, for example. I work out about 4 times a week. I don't want to. I'd rather sit on my couch and eat potato chips. But I know that I have to want being fit and healthier more than I want sitting on the couch and eating potato chips. And your clients and the audience's clients, they have to want the results of the change and the reward more than they want to stay safe.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit, if that's okay. I wanted to ask you, Kerra, in the articles you've written, maybe in the last, I don't know the right time period, 6 months, year. Um, what are like either quotes that you've included or the sound bites that got picked up on that you were surprised about? Like you wrote a piece thinking it was attacking a topic or kind of a position in this particular way, but then in the end, the way that it was picked up in the public space, social media and other outlets, it just surprised you on what the end result ended up being. If there's an example, I'm hoping there is one.
I'll create some. Actually, Paul surprised me because there was an article initially on LinkedIn, and he's like, "But you're on Nasdaq," and I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he sent me the article. I had no idea that I had that kind of reach because I'm sort of a person where I do an article and then I go on to the next thing. So I didn't know the reach that I had through Go
Mm.
Banking Rates. The second thing is about politics. I have been told, I was a professional Democrat at one time. And I have been told by conservative thinkers and economists, like, you're really fair and you're really honest. And that meant a lot to me because it's not my job to tell people what to think. It's my job to give them information. And if I can give them the best information that they can to make a decision, I feel like I can sleep well at night. So it doesn't directly answer your question, but that's what I feel good about.
Yeah, being surprised by your reach and your impact, I think, that is something to note. So thank you.
yeah, well, I think people are hungry too for that kind of connections. You know, boy, this has nothing to do with annuities, but my brother-in-law had this teacher, this great lab. I think you met the lab
Oh yeah. Yep.
on television, Kara. It was like from about year 1 to year 3, you didn't. It was the terror. It was eating the closets, eating the grills, doing everything. Then it turned into this just phenomenal dog, and it really took my brother and his kids through some really hard times and challenging times. And what happened this last month, got a tumor,
Mhm.
right? And so they had to put the dog to sleep. And, but my niece actually did a little TikTok video on it. It was hard, it was kind of heart wrenching. And NBC calls, puts it on their
Wow.
website.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think these, it's sometimes surprising, but sometimes it's just these human emotions. I think are super powerful. I think in a time like this, we all kind of need that. Maybe we could talk just about purpose, Kara. We talked a little bit about this. We've had a couple guests on here said and we spent a lot of time talking about retirement. What's the geez, I'm trying to think who was the first one who told us this, but if you want to live a long, healthy life, have a posse and a purpose.
No. Yeah. I don't remember who said it, but I do remember the
And
line.
we've heard it a couple of times. It's like one of those, Kara, that kind of runs through, and I read it in books and I see the studies and science and stuff. But then, why do you wait till 65 to find a purpose? Why is it you had to get fired from your last job to find a purpose? I mean, what kind of advice? Here's the headline. Tell me 5 ways to find a purpose before you actually have to retire. I mean, how would you pen that one?
That one's hard because I've tried all the things. I did a year business purpose intensive that cost me $15,000, but I met a lot of nice people. I've read a ton of books, and I think that your purpose finds you. And I think that you look for the green light, the green flags. You look for the glimmers where something lights up inside of you and you go, oh, I think that's interesting. And you follow your curiosity and you follow your sense of wonder, as my friend Jeffrey Davis says. And following your wonder helps lead you to your purpose. And then also knowing that your purpose doesn't have to be your job. So you can do one thing, but to make a living, to earn a living and provide for yourself and your family, but your purpose might be something else. And then also knowing that your purpose can change over time. It could be one thing in your 40s and another thing in retirement. But there will likely be a connective tissue between all of the different things that you do. And also that it serves others. Like you really have to feel good about serving other people when you know that it is not about you, it is about the community and the people that you serve. To me, that's purpose.
I think that's a good point. The idea that I think a lot of times people attach like the idea of purpose to the identity of their career or their job or their role, their professional role, and the idea that it doesn't have to be, can be, but it doesn't have to be. And it sort of resonates with me because I think that that's kind of been my reality of there's a means to an end, and you know I'm a single mother. Like there are things that I have to do to provide what I need to provide. And it wasn't always feeling like my purpose, but there was flexibility in the role that I had and support, right, from the type of company I chose to work for, that I had time during the day or in my free time to do things in the community. And that's where I found a sort of source of purpose. And to your point of things changing over time, there were periods where that kind of brought me through times where maybe I was less happy in other realms of life. But now call it maybe an 8-10 year conversion of the two, where some of the skills I built through volunteering and board service and some other, business projects now have built skills that have led me to the moment that I have now professionally with this role, but even previous roles in my career where they kind of come back together. So I just maybe, underscoring exactly what you're saying, where you can think about it a little differently. And I think it is maybe positioned in the media, books and podcasts a little more narrowly, where it's really finding the career or the job that fills your purpose. And there are other ways to do that. So I appreciate that perspective.
May I just add one quick thing that really helped me because I think of myself as a writer and a creator and a storyteller. And as interesting as it is to write for Go Banking Rates, sometimes it gets monotonous, to be quite honest. And when I get into those spaces, it's always good to think of your paying gig as an investor into your purpose. And that really helps. For me, that was a great mind shift. So it was like, okay, it's not like, oh, my job is one place and my purpose is another. It's that my paying work it is an investor into my purpose and my creative work. So that might be another shift or way to think about a job versus purpose if they are different things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for what you're doing. There are a lot of loud voices in our business that are not necessarily helpful or educational. So, if and when you feel like it's monotonous, I'm telling you, you're doing some really good work, bringing um, nice, balanced information to the public who needs the help. So, so Kerra, listen, how can people follow you? Um, See some of the other sides of your businesses and film work.
I am still trying to figure that out because I am still trying to figure out the best way to communicate the different things that I do. So, LinkedIn, of course, I'm there occasionally. You can follow my company, Woodbine Ventures, on Instagram. I'll post things that I'm doing. And in the meantime, you have to wait for my film and other creative work. Sometimes I'm on narratively. I do teach memoir writing classes. So if folks want to learn how to do that, and Go Banking Rates, of course, I'm writing 5 or more stories a week. So that's probably the best place to find my work.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Tisa, thank you for joining, and want to thank all our listeners, and be sure to join us again next week for another great episode of That Annuity Show. Thanks, Kerra.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information or listen to more episodes at thatannuityshow.com. Nassau Financial Group is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We build products that help protect people's savings and are dedicated to providing you with best-in-class service. We seek to keep things simple and have your back in the years to come. Nassau is headquartered in Hartford, Connecticut. Learn more at nfg.com.
Zinnia, an Eldridge Industries business, simplifies insurance. It delivers comprehensive solutions for the industry's most critical needs and creates the modern rails of the insurance industry. To learn more about Zinnia, please visit zinnia.com.